Welcome to the Extracurricular Podcast. This week joining us we have Xander,
Hello there.
we have On Reload,
How are you?
and we have Kira.
Hi.
And of course, as usual, we have Adapaman
Salutations.
and myself, Akona. And so, opening it straight up before we get into anything too deep, what have you guys been playing this week?
Does anyone else have anything they want to talk about what they've been playing?
I'll go first just because I actually just had it open. I've been playing the Doom roguelike, which is, if you don't know what a roguelike is, I'll be very terrible at explaining it. It's a type of RPG. Do you guys know what it is?
Yeah, I know what a
Yes,
roguelike is, but I
yes,
didn't
but
realize. Yeah, explain it for the audience.
Yeah, I want to hear your explanation.
No, you don't. It's an RPG, I guess you could say a Western one, that has a lot of random elements to it. Many levels are kind of randomly generated, so it's a different experience every time you play. There's permanent death, meaning when you're out of hit points, you are done. You play a new game, you build a new character. It relies a decent amount on luck because of the random nature. So you hope you get certain mods for your armor or your weapons, and you hope you don't go into rooms that are kind of built unfairly for you. Besides that, it follows a lot of the rules of old school RPGs. The idea that you roll dice every time you try to attack or defend or dodge, that kind of thing. But this one I've been playing, it's a great intro to it for me because it. While roguelikes are kind of intimidating, they're very hardcore is what I've been calling them. There's just a lot to think about. It's themed like the original Doom and Doom 2 for DOS. It's got the music, and it's got a graphic tile set because, from what I understand, roguelikes are typically ASCII, meaning that you're just a little @ symbol moving through, pluses and minuses and backslashes representing enemies and just different colored text.
I did not realize there
nice.
was a Doom version of a roguelike. I need to get on that because
Yeah,
I
it's
like both
great,
of those
it's great.
things.
It sounds really interesting. Another roguelike that's definitely worth looking into for beginners in the roguelike genre.
Dreadmore.
Yeah, Dungeons of Dreadmore is probably the easiest introduction to
Yeah, it's like,
roguelikes.
isn't it like a $5 on Steam? It's
Something
pretty
like
cheap.
that. It's really cheap, but you can
really cheap.
basically it's got difficulty levels, which is probably one of the best features you could have added to a
Some
roguelike.
roguelike fans called bullshit on that, but
But at the end of the day, if you are a beginner to the roguelike genre, turning off permadeath, whilst an affront to everything that roguelike stands for, is probably one of the best ways to get your head around the rest of the mechanics.
Yeah, I mean, I would
also
say that.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that it was interesting hearing people tell me, especially a friend of mine who plays Dwarf Fortress, which to me seems to be a very
That's intimidating.
intimidatingly large scale roguelike. They hear for The Binding of Isaac as a roguelike, which it is, and yet it isn't. That's a very soft intro to it. But
Yeah, another
Isaac
one
is
that I'd
probably my
recommend.
first, baby's first roguelike, probably because it barely follows the rules.
it's just randomly pickups and random rooms.
How it does it with tiles and how it's very very much a roguelike, but with like a nice lick of paint and also a killer sense of humor. Dreadmore is a very funny game. I'll give them credit for that. A lot of callbacks to other games, and even as you mentioned, the difficulty references. I think easy is called Elves Just Want to Have Fun, which is a pretty good name for an easy difficulty. And there's there's a ton of Monkey Island references, which gives you an idea.
There's a ton of it kind of embodies that old LucasArts style of humor where everything's kind of self-referential
very
and
sweet and kind of weird.
It's got a similar visual style to Monkey Island.
Yeah.
Actually, it kind of has. I heard someone saying the main character looks a bit like the guy Tim from Control Delete, but it does have a kind of set look to it.
But yeah, I definitely recommend both Dreadmore and Binding of Isaac as entry level to the roguelike genre.
I actually would volunteer the Doom one if you're okay with that type of game.
Yeah.
Just because it is very simple. It does have difficulty levels. I mean, there's still permadeath, though. That's unavoidable. But it's pretty simple, and it still feels a bit like a shooter. Like you have to think to yourself, like, well, I need to reload. I need ammunition for this. I need to take this type of tactic, against this enemy. And so for me, it's been a great transition.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to look into that one. Um,
Actually, if you could put a list on the forums about games for
yeah,
introducing
yeah,
in the genre, because it sounds really interesting. And for me, after Fire Emblem, everything that has permadeath has to be very awesome.
Yeah, but Fire Emblem's kind of roguelike-ish if it was just thrown to attack orgy.
I would say
It's
it's a
pretty
strategy
harsh.
RPG, pretty
Yeah, like it's
solidly.
yeah.
harsh though.
Actually, we'll
I
talk
mean,
about it in the JRPG discussion
yeah,
probably.
yeah.
Probably.
What have the rest of you been playing?
I
Well,
have been playing. Well, we'll get into it. I have been playing. Well, I've been playing Mass Effect, but let's not talk about. We've
Yeah, I'm
done
gonna
two
hold
podcasts
off on
about
the
sci-fi. We don't need to talk about
yeah,
the
because I've
other
been
games I
playing
played.
Mass Effect
Yeah,
3, but I don't want to talk about it just yet.
yeah.
So
You need to germinate the thoughts in your brain before you talk about that game.
yeah, so we'll cover yours first.
Yeah, I played for about 3 hours this weekend because I bought it on a whim. It came out this week, I think, for wide release. It is the latest game by that game company, makers of Flower and Flow. It's called Journey. It's a hard game to describe, but essentially you're like a red-garbed, genderless character who is kind of on a solitary quest through the desert at the beginning, but you descend up this mountain on, I guess it's a form of pilgrimage as you're trying to figure out what happened to this fallen, like it looks like a fallen civilization as you journey, where you see structures that have fallen to ruin. The setting is mildly like Ico, but not that much because the art style's so vastly different, colorful. And the sand looks amazing, and the animations are really flowy, and it's a pretty basic puzzler, but the main hook of it is the co-op, because it's kind of like it's bizarre. You'll meet people along the way as you journey, but you won't ever get to learn their names, and the only way you have to communicate them is with the circle button on the joypad, which causes your character to make a small noise or like a large noise depending on how long you hold it down, and you're kind of rewarded for working with someone because you usually have to recharge your jumps with like scarf pieces, but when you're near someone, just them chirping gives you the ability to jump. So the game is easier and it kind of promotes you to be connected with people. But like it has this bizarre kind of you're not really connected to them, but you are as you journey. And well, just a story of like one scenario that happened to me. Like I've only been playing that game for 3 hours, and I met this character fairly early on, and we kind of journeyed through a good bit of the game together, solving puzzles. And without knowing, I like began to grow attached to him because we had this part where you like sliding down the sand dune, and it's quite a triumphant moment because like the music starts roaring and the lights flickering through the sands, and it is very beautiful. And I just kept going faster and faster, and I never looked behind to see where the guy went. And when I got to the end, I turned to see if my friend was there, and he wasn't there. And I was like, oh, he must have gone. I must have disconnected from him. So I started to begin to walk down the path. And at this point, the game actually took a very dark turn. And it was very dark, and there were only spots of luminescent sand, like where like I think moonbeams are hitting down on it. And you pretty much can't see where you're going. You're just going through this beams of light. And I saw behind me, like it lets you know when a character's near you, and it just kind of I just heard a chirp, and the light appeared on my screen to look behind me, and I turned around, and he was just standing there, like on the sands. This happened about a minute after I'd left him, and he must have just finished the course himself. And I just felt so happy to see him. And it's just it's the kind of thing this is emulating, where you have this weird sense of fraternity with these characters who you're never really communicating with, these players you're never really getting to know. But the way the game is structured, you just feel connected to them. And later on, like as we journey through that part, we fought these monsters where if they spot you, the light turns red and they attack you. And I was lagging behind. This is the first encounter with them, and he just got spotted, and he had nowhere to run, and he just kind of stood there. And I started chirping for him to run away, but he didn't really do that, and it dove at him, took a huge chunk out of the sand, and whether or not he disconnected, I can't ever tell. But he essentially was dead from that point on, and I never saw him again. And it was just
Aw.
a really like bizarrely solemn moment in the game. And I met other people along the way, but I never really got as connected to them as that one guy. And like it's interesting the way the game like limits you from really communicating or having any knowledge of these people at all. Because later on, during like a snow part of the game, the winds are really blowing, and like your character physically looks worn and torn as you're slowly barreling up through the snow, and like the frost is starting to like clip away at his clothes, and like the nips at the bottom are all worn away. And I was huddling for like warmth because if you get together, there's like this heat like near you with this one character behind this small stone. Like I think it was actually a tombstone that we're hiding behind of another character. But the winds were like it was the way to protect ourselves from the winds. And later on in the game, when you finish it, it gives you a list of the PSNs of those characters you've met along the way. And I learned because he was the last character I journeyed with in the entire game. That guy's name was Big Bald Scary Guy in all caps. So you wouldn't think you'd be journeying with that kind of a guy, and then like the game is purposely circumventing what you or subverting what your preconceived notions of what players are like in these sort of games, and it does it so masterfully. I think it's just one of those games you have to experience, and it's short, but I still feel like with the amount it goes to offer for I think it's €13. I think about $15. I'm not sure on the
Yeah, it's
PlayStation Network
15.
only. You can't get it any other way because it's a Sony produced title. If you can get it, you should because it is so interesting and so like not par to course. Like it's trying something very deliberate, and I think it pays off pretty significantly for them. And it's different from their usual games. It's far more video gamey, but I think it's making commentaries about the way we interact in games in a way I like. So yeah, we should promote
Yeah,
this sort of a game.
yeah, I'm gonna be getting it when I can, definitely. But like
Maybe we'll journey together and we'll never know.
yeah, maybe we will, and we'll find out at the end, and we'll be like, ah, look
Uh,
at that. But no, everything I've heard about it has been really interesting, and I think it's going to be a topic that we touch on later. But the way that player interaction has developed over the years, some of it I'm not a big fan of,
yeah.
and I like the idea that basically they stripped all that out and
They
they
were
left it
purposely
very,
trying to make it as like stripped away as possible so that there was just that core like feeling of
yeah,
interacting with another person, and you're going through this very deliberate like the way it's structured, it's very deliberately like everything but these people are out to get you. So you do get this feeling of like fraternity with the red garbed men you meet along the
yeah,
way in question that you meet along the way. Like I think it's a really interesting idea that I not necessarily want to. I don't necessarily want to see this done by someone else, but I'd like to see other games, make a commentary about the way we do things like this in video games a lot
yeah,
more.
definitely. I think more kind of almost social experiment style games need to. I always like when they're done, definitely. But moving on, what have the rest of you been playing? Xander, Kira?
Well, for me, it's been Mass Effect, the Mass Effect week.
Right.
But I will say this though that I started playing the Mass Effect 2 DLC that I didn't complete back in the day, and then
Oh yeah,
switch immediately after Mass Effect 3, and yeah, you can definitely notice the difference.
yeah. They have up like the gameplay quality quite a significant portion. I do feel that that's a thing we could definitely say solidly about Mass Effect 3 is that in terms of
Yeah.
gameplay, BioWare have made a very competent shooter, which maybe they've never
Yeah.
done before.
For me, it was a kind of letdown to see that Mass Effect 3 has way less dialogue options than the other two games. That right now everything it's either Paragon or Renegade, and this time you don't have the middle ground option. For me, it was like, what happened here?
Yeah, I mean, without going too heavily into it, like Mass Effect
Yeah,
3 has been a little bit of a letdown, but
yeah. Anyway, I'm still long ways to go before the ending, and I'm really scared.
same, yeah.
You're like
I
feeling it. You've got like a sense of dread in your stomach. Like everyone seems to hate this. Am I gonna hate this? Because that's what
yes.
I
Yeah,
honestly
it's
felt.
no,
I
it's
was like,
more like
am I
every
gonna hate this?
Yeah, it's more like every time that I pick up the game, it's like I feel millions of people screaming from the distance saying, "It sucks! It sucks! It sucks!"
I, for one, personally, did not hate the ending. I won't say it's the best ending they could have produced, but there is a certain. Now, this is getting way inside baseball, and I'm going to talk about this as in broad strokes as I can. There is a
Yeah.
theory someone has put across that makes a lot, like a huge amount of sense, and BioWare have been completely silent about this. I have a feeling it's going to be addressed in the DLC that does make that ending a far more interesting ending, purely for what it means.
Okay.
It's a
I will
certain
keep
theory
that
someone
in
introduced.
mind.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It's like you might finish the ending and go, well, that was stupid, but give it a second to sink in, then look at that. It's very easy to find
Well,
this story. It's
let's
all
put
over.
it this way, okay?
Mhm.
Let's put it this way. The ending to Evangelion. I'm one of the people who like it.
Oh God.
Me too.
You mean the
So,
TV
Not
show,
like
right?
that. It's
yes.
just
Me
letting you
too.
know it's
So
not
basically,
like that, but it's
I am aware
good.
it's probably not like that, but at
Yeah.
the same time, I'm basically saying I'm not swayed by mass public
Oh, me
opinion.
neither. I liked the Lost ending.
Like,
I'm a freak in
Ooh.
nature apparently because I actually liked how Lost ended.
see,
Yeah, I'm even more curmudgeon-y than you.
Now we're
Wait,
all
like
free to
actually
finish Mass
liked,
Effect 3.
actually liked, or just didn't dislike?
No, I actually actively liked the way Lost
Okay.
ended.
okay.
Yeah, no.
I can't remember the end to Lost. I didn't really invest too much in
I didn't really
the
like
end
any
series.
part of the series. Or, I mean, I liked parts of it, but as a whole, I didn't like the series as a whole. So,
That's the thing. It's actually for a long time I did not like that series, but once it got to the ending, I was like, I can like this as a whole. That was my
uh,
deviation on that.
Well,
But
you know what? The thing is that now that you have mentioned Evangelion, now I'm starting to think about how Mass Effect could go that way, and it's
It doesn't go that way, but it goes
it
a
kind of
way.
has.
No,
Like,
it goes a
Ugh.
way. Like it doesn't go the way you're thinking, but it does go. It doesn't go the right like it doesn't go the way you'd expect a story like this to conclude. It's up until like it's the way people are talking about. There is a podium which raises. That's not a spoiler. There's a podium which raises. As soon as that raises, it gets so stupid. For the next like 10 minutes, it
okay.
gets so stupid. Everything up until that point is amazing. Like everything. It's literally the last 10 minutes of the game that gets so
Okay.
weird.
I think
And
we
then,
are
like,
starting to enter into a dangerous
Yeah,
place.
Yeah.
yeah,
no
let's
more.
stop dancing around the spoiler.
Won't
Pull
say-
back.
no,
Yeah.
no.
Kira,
We
what
have
have you
a
been playing?
podcast to say.
I have been playing. Well, I've been playing two games. On my PC, I've been playing Cave Story. I'm still at the beginning of that, and then on my Xbox, which is really what I'm concentrating on. This is the original Xbox, not the 360. I'm playing Max Payne, the original Max Payne game.
Sometime.
Yeah, I'm almost done with it. I'm on part 3. There are 3 parts, and I'm on part 3. I'm in the middle of part 3, so I'm almost done with it. I haven't really beaten that game since I was maybe like 17. Like I beat it several times when I first got it when I was like 12 or 13. And then I played it again randomly in high school. But it's been like 6 years, and I've forgotten a lot of like I remember like key moments in the narrative and like some really weird all the nightmare levels, but
Yes,
I
yeah.
still it's fun because I'm still like I it feels new like as I'm playing, even though like like oh yeah, like as I'm playing it, I'm like oh I remember that, oh I remember how to solve this, but it's after I already figure out how to solve it. I'm like oh yeah I remember that I had to do that last time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's fun kind of going back, and I'm trying to
It stands to the quality of that game that
Yeah.
doesn't feel old to you.
Yeah, I was afraid that I wasn't going to like I was afraid that like I really liked it when I was 12, and then I'd play it again when I'm 23 and I would hate it. I was so afraid that I wouldn't like the game, but I still do. I still really like the game, and I'm gonna I'm planning on beating Max Payne and Max Payne 2 before Max Payne 3 comes out, which
When's
I'm
that out,
excited
by the way?
for certain reasons. It comes out May, yeah. May.
No, you
and
can
I will-
say the reasons and not sound like a corporate whore, though you probably still will.
I won a
Yes.
contest that was over Twitter, that was run by Rockstar Games, and I was one of the 8 people who won the contest, and so my likeness, my face, will be used as a multiplayer character in the Max Payne 3 multiplayer.
So what you're
So-
saying is I'll be able to shoot you
Yeah, what you're saying is I'll be able to shoot you in the face.
Yes.
over and over again.
Yeah, I want to get into like a game where everybody is playing as my character.
As you.
I don't know what it is, but that'd be awesome. We'd all just be like killing each other. It'd be fantastic.
That sounds like one of my nightmares, to be honest. Shooting myself in the face
killing
over and over
me.
again.
I will be right there with you trying to coordinate that one because I am definitely getting the PC version of that game.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I own the first and second on
But see,
Steam,
it's
and I
interesting because
adore them.
Remedy don't have a hand in this. I'm slightly.
I know, and
Yes.
this really bugs me on one level because I feel that the story was going a certain way,
Yeah, and
and
they're
now
not going. They're kind of not going that way with this
they're
game.
not going to capitalize on it now.
See, I
Um,
look at that and I go, well, them not being shackled to Alan Wake, I mean, not shackled to Max Payne, which is kind of cruel. Let them make Alan Wake.
in a
So,
sense, yeah.
yeah,
I
like maybe it's fine. Remedy moved on.
I certainly think that like as a whole, Max Payne 1 and 2 can stand the test of time.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know how well throwing a third one into the mix will
I have faith in
upset that, but like
like
I'm glad that in some ways I'm glad that it was left there, but it'll be interesting to see where they go with a third one. Um, but like I say, I had theories on the direction the narrative was going in Max Payne 1 and 2. Um, and I just don't think that
you think it's
without
not gonna
Remedy,
go.
I don't think it can
Well,
go
it's
there.
worth noting that like one of the Hauser brothers is writing this,
Yeah,
so
I mean
like
the
there's
the
quality writing.
pedigree,
Yeah.
yeah, the pedigree of the writing is going to be there,
Not like
but
top notch, but it's not Remedy ultimately. It's not their intention. Because here's the great thing about Remedy is while they wrote a very, very good genre piece, they're always good at this. They're great at writing genre pieces. They
yeah,
took it a weird route. They're good at twisting it and making it
yeah,
really weird.
definitely. Like they took the noir thriller and kind of
So
went,
kind of like with the Valkyrie stuff, they kind of
yeah.
made it really odd. Like I think ultimately that's what intrigued me about Max Payne.
And
Just how
my
odd it got.
Yeah, I have an oddball theory about the Max Payne series, but I won't go into it because
Now
there's
that
a
Rockstar
long.
may put some pressure and go more mainstream, maybe.
I don't know.
Eh, I really
Don't
hope
know.
not. I really hope
I
they keep
really don't
the.
like. But like at a point, when has Rockstar ever appealed to the masses? Like
Yeah,
ever? Like the whole thing about Rockstar is they don't give a fuck, and it just pays off. Like
they
that's
like
the
to
thing with them.
subvert expectations. They really
Yeah,
do.
like the Red Dead, like L.A. Noire. What was that? Like no one expected to get that game when
Yeah,
that
and
game came out.
but yes, I will
You
be
don't think with
pre-ordering Max Payne 3 and
the Grand Theft
Yeah.
Auto sequels that they were kind of, I mean, playing into their own popularity there?
Well,
A lot of the similarities.
I don't really think they were. I think they were always took it to a next level.
they were
Like,
always trying something new with them.
yeah,
I'll say
and
that
then
Something
much.
crazy.
in Grand Theft Auto 4, they decided, hey, we're going to get serious, and that could have blown up in their faces. But I don't. I personally think it didn't. I know a lot of people didn't love that game as much as I did, but I thought it went an interesting. It went with the route they needed to go with that series, with something like that.
For me, it blew. It blew
Really, you
completely.
did not like Grand Theft Auto 4?
It's
I'm
such
Uh,
a
for
huge
me,
it's
fan
for
such
of
a
it.
me,
friggin'
no, for
it's
me,
such a Marmite game.
I didn't.
I thought it was like The Wire, the game, and I was like, yes, please.
Like
That's exactly.
I really liked Grand Theft Auto 4, but you either love it or you hate it. There's no middle
But some
ground with
people
it.
just people wanted Saints Row. Like some people just wanted that, and I think
But I had Saints Row
No,
for my Saints
at
Row.
least for me, it wasn't like that. For me, it was that I really disliked Nico Bellic. I mean, for me, it was a very hypocritical character. So, I
what
mean,
did you think of? Because like they were ultimately they've been trying this for years. The likable but begrudgingly still a criminal, and you depending on how you play in the like non-mission parts, completely insane character. They did it with the John Marston, I think, quite
no,
well.
yeah, John Marston was definitely a way
John
better
Marston was
character.
like I think they were just trying to figure it out with Nico Bellic, and it didn't pay off
Yeah.
fully.
Probably.
We've had
But
this discussion before, like where Nico feels like
he's half
their
a character.
first foray into it, and then John Marsden was kind of like the
Fully fleshed
refinement
out.
of it.
Cole
Yeah.
Phelps was a fine main character in L.A.
Oh
Noire.
yeah.
Like I think the protagonists are getting progressively better as they go.
Yeah, because we were discussing this when we were talking about Grand Theft Auto 5 and our thoughts on it.
Yeah.
And I'm really intrigued to see where that goes. But bringing us onto the episode discussion.
Yep.
This week's episode, the closing part on Western versus Japanese RPGs. Xander, I know this is your field, so where are your
Yep.
thoughts on this?
Well, First, I already put a reply on the forums that maybe was a little bit harsh on them because
Go ahead. Paraphrase.
well, the thing is that there were parts of the video that I thought that weren't right, or maybe because they didn't. Maybe what it failed was that they didn't express themselves correctly. But it was first when they were talking about how turn-based combats were the probably the worst part of the JRPGs, and I definitely don't think that that's true. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it was like a. I mean, the basic idea was that turn-based combat is not compelling, and I mean,
It's
I
compelling, but I think what they were trying to get at was in itself it's not that interactive, and while they have tried to improve on it, they haven't tried that hard. And I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
that's what they're pointing out as
I
their
was
failure.
actually I was meant to segue better into this one because what I've been playing this week is Persona 3 Portable.
Oh, yeah, they
Um,
mentioned that as a. I was actually waiting for it while looking at the video. I was like, wait, I'm waiting for them to go. But then you have Persona, which is a great
yeah,
series.
but
yeah, but
see, that's to me, this is an example of how uncompelling turn-based combat is because you have to keep adding these layers of abstraction to it to make it interesting.
Yeah, like
You know,
it's only
Persona
supposed
3 Portable is definitely not just turn-based. You know, it is a turn-based combat system, but there are so many levels on top of that that abstract from that, which make it compelling and engaging. And not all turn-based combat does that effectively. And basically, the way I view it is that turn-based combat at its core isn't compelling to me. It's the other features that are added via experimentation that make it compelling. So when you end up in situations where you have, you know, how Final Fantasy then progressed to the active time battle system as a way of trying to create more engagement in turn-based combat and things like that, you know, there's definite
well,
added layers.
I don't know. I mean, it's the usual difference between the concept and the execution. You know, at least that's
I
what I
guess.
take.
Yeah.
That yeah, of course that turn-based combat cannot be engaging, but I think that basically every single game mechanic can't be not engaging if it's not properly executed. Uh,
Yes,
so
but like the difference to me is that turn-based combat at its very core to me isn't compelling.
Like they always have to add a hook.
There always has to be something to
Like
like the not back then because back then it was kind of as the
it's
episode said it
acceptable.
kind of became accepted that these games focused on narrative rather than gameplay to an extent.
Yeah.
Um, so a
I
lot of
have
the
an
times
interesting
you kind
thought on
of
Yeah.
that.
oh go
It's
ahead
got
reload if you
yeah,
have a
go ahead.
point.
Well, the thing is they, you know, they talked a lot about narrative and that kind of thing. And definitely, you know, JRPGs have, or Japanese RPGs have focused on that very heavily for a long time. But where I started to actually hate Japanese RPGs was definitely with the introduction of voice acting and full motion video. I love Final Fantasy 5 and 6, and they're totally based around just turn-based.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
like they don't even try to change it at that point.
yeah,
I
they were just straight up just pick
I
the
would
snap.
say
But
that
well,
I
five you
would
had
say
all
that having
the no,
the
sorry,
job system
yeah,
and the job system in five, or the fact that every character had a unique ability in six,
Well,
was definitely
there
a
were
hook.
like abilities, but like
Each one was
you get you
unique, and
it's gone to a point now with the Final Fantasy series is a good example where since 10 yeah, since 10 they have been trying.
10 was probably
It has the best combat, but like they've
yeah
been
the epitome.
reinventing the wheel
yeah, well, my
ever
thing with
since
10
10.
is that I liked 10 when it let me play it. Because,
Yes,
for
Yeah.
one thing, it was very linear. It did all these cutscenes, and I did not care about any of the characters. I never have, and I didn't get to fully. I'll go back for
Yeah,
a second on that.
10
But
is a game I do not like because the
Ten's
story.
another
I
Marmite.
liked it when I got to free roam and just do whatever I wanted and just go
That's
and
that's a lot of people's
max myself
13
out.
problem also.
Yeah, that's
Well, anyway,
Once you get to free roam, it gets good.
well,
But
the only thing Final Fantasy X has a lot of cultural differences issues because Final Fantasy X it's massively loved in Japan, and I mean, the first time that I